The Badgers stay hot on the recruiting trail. They pick up another commitment. Let's sound the cannons. Plus, let's talk about the job A.J. Blazek's doing with offensive line recruiting. All that and more. Locked on Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Badger fans, what's good? Welcome to Friday. Happy Friday, wherever you're getting this, whether you're listening to it in the car, on the boat, in the plane, at work, at home, whatever it is. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being an everydayer. Thank you for making this part of your day. I am Ryan Herrings. Today's episode is coming to you from room 322 of my hotel journey, but we are excited for it. Let's sound the cannons because Nolan Davenport is a Badger. Let's talk about it.
Fire the recruiting cannons. Another one is headed to Madison on Wisconsin.
So let's talk about Nolan Davenport commits to the Wisconsin Badgers. 6'6", 260-pound offensive tackle coming out of Ohio. He is a 3-star composite player. A lot to like here. A lot to like with Nolan Davenport. You start with the frame, right? You look at offensive tackles. There's a reason the highest paid offensive tackles, the best ones in the world, they're big, huge human beings, right? They're 6'6", they're 6'7". You look at the other guys in this class, Resky, Cam Clark is 6'7". You have to have that size to play on the edge. And from a physicality standpoint, he fits that. He has the size. He has the arm length. It's probably not as crazy a wingspan as some of the elite guys, but he has plenty of size and arm length to play on the edge. One of the things I love about him, I mentioned this on a previous show, offensive tackles who transition from tight end, right? Here was a guy who was a tight end. He also played some defensive lineman. You can see the movement skills, the footwork, the agility, right? He's an athlete. He's an athlete still growing into his body. He's a guy who outgrew tight end, but he retained those movement skills, the ability to get his hips going, the ability to explode out of his stance, the ability to get into open space and latch onto targets, right? He has all of those. Right? So he plays an athletic brand of football on the edge. And one of the things, this isn't just coming from me, right? Having talked to some of the people on the show, I think Clint Cosgrove and I talked about this. If it wasn't Clint, it was me and Brian Smith. But we were talking about football has moved a little away from your left tackle is your nimble, incredible athlete, and your right tackle is your road grader, right? It's Joe Thomas and Aaron Gibson kind of type if you're thinking Badger stereotypes. Football's kind of moved away from that a little bit. You just need two athletes on the edges now, in my opinion. I think you need two athletic tackles to handle the speed and the versatility of defenses now. They're flipping their rushers around. You got to move away from that prototype a little bit. This is a guy who can fit into that mold. He can be one-year athletic edges as an offensive tackle. Cam Clark can do that. Resky can do that. Kevin Haywood can do that. I think Jensen from last year's class can do that. They've been recruiting guys who can fit into this mold of we just need to be long and athletic at the offensive tackle spots. Kind of gone is that we need a road grader there. Now, you still got to run block. It's not that you don't have to run block anymore, but the emphasis has shifted a little bit more towards we need to be athletic at both edges. That's why you need to get guys like this. You have to get players who are 6'6", 6'7", who can move, who can run, who can get into space, who can get to that second level and wall off the linebacker. Davenport can do all of that, right? He shows all of that on film. It's really, really fun to watch. Physical. He plays with a nastiness too. He finishes blocks. He buries people. Let's get into continuing to look at some of those scouting report here. Again, you see the movement skills, agility, really good job of getting angles on defenders. That, again, goes with that athleticism, right? He's getting angles and he's moving people to create the holes for the running back. That's a very obvious skill when you watch him on film. Plays with a wide stance and shows the ability on a couple clips to really mirror defensive ends coming around the edges. Definitely a guy who, again, has that foot speed and that movement speed to hold up against speed rushers, to hold up against athletic edges that are going to be screaming around that edge at 240 pounds with a low center of gravity. This is the type of guy you need. You need a guy who can kick step, mirror, set, and hold the edge for that 3 or 4 seconds against the elite edges that they're going to be playing in the Big Ten, that they're going to be playing with the non-conference schedule, that they're going to be playing in the playoffs. You need guys like this that can hold up. From a run blocking standpoint, shows excellent leg drive, continues the blocks until the whistle, buries a bunch of dudes, wants to finish people off. And again, I think this ties into his tight end background. He fires off the ball, right? He can really fire off the ball quickly. There is some technique work to clean up here. Gets a little tall. again, that's most offensive tackles in high school. He's got to sink the hips a little bit more, play with a little bit more leverage. And then size, right? You're 260, 265 right now. This is a player that's going to have to add 50, 60 pounds to be effective at the Big Ten level. Will it happen? Probably, but you just never really know, right? That's why offensive linemen, defense linemen, that's why these are really difficult positions to project, because you're just not sure how the body is going to react when you put 60 more pounds on him, 50 more pounds on him. Is he going to keep that athletic profile, right? That's why if you can find a guy with this type of athleticism, but is like 6'6", 290, Kevin Haywood, for example, last year, they're easier to project, but this is the physical prototype you're looking for, right? This is the ball of clay you're looking for. And if you're talking about ball of clay, like Wisconsin has some great artists, right? Brady Collins can shape balls of clay. AJ Blazek, I think this is a home run guy. I'm going to get into him more, but this feels like the right type of guy who can develop and coach balls of clay. So you find the athletic traits, right? Length, check. Size, check. Movement skills, the ability to get in space, the ability to mirror. You find those athletic traits in a kid, and then you turn them over to your strength and conditioning program, which I think Wisconsin has an excellent one. You turn them over to your offensive line coach, and I think Wisconsin hit a home run in that aspect this offseason, and you feel pretty good about it. They're bringing in 3 guys this cycle, 3 offensive tackles this cycle that I think are all a little different, but all Plan A type guys. So a big pickup for the Badgers. Nolan Davenport, somebody who I think has a lot of the physical skills, offers from Stanford, Pitt, Mizzou, Ole Miss, Michigan State. He had a Penn State offer coming up and an official to Penn State. So this is a highly recruited kid. He checks the offer list box that I talk about a lot. The film is really strong. And then he's got the athletic traits. So he checks a lot of the boxes you're looking for. I think a really good pickup for the Badgers and AJ Blazek. We're going to take a quick break, come back and talk to you about some of the official visitors coming this weekend, offensive line recruiting, the job AJ Blazek has done, and more on today's Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at eBay Motors. I've talked a lot about eBay Motors. I've talked a lot about, at times, because of, a little fender bender here, a little bumper scraper there. I've had to go and get a few extra parts for the old ride. That's where you keep your ride or die alive over at eBay Motors. The right parts, the right fit, the right prices. And what more do you need, right? If you need anything for your ride, whether you need bumpers, whether you need radio parts, interior floor mats, right? New headlights, tail lights, spark plugs, oil filters, whatever it is. They have over 122 million parts. They're the biggest warehouse of auto parts you're going to find. So why waste time going anywhere else? Why take the chance that you drive in, you spend the time, you put on a nice shirt to go talk to the mechanic, and he doesn't have your part? Like, why? Just go online, go to eBay Motors. The right parts, the right fit, the right prices. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Exclusions do apply. ebaymotors.com. All right, let's keep going here. Let's talk. I want to go AJ Blazek for a second, and then I want to get into some of the other official visitors coming this weekend that I'm really high on. But AJ Blazek is coming to hit the ground running, right? He has come in and he has absolutely hit the ground running this cycle. You think about Logan Powell. That is a huge win from already committed from the first official visit weekend. Now you had Nolan Davenport. You have Cam Clark, right? You're just adding athletic, physical players, and we're in Hardy Watts. I mean, Hardy Watts is coming this weekend. That's a guy that even just getting him on campus is a big win. That's going to be a tough battle to pull. Like Michigan's in on him, a couple other schools. That's going to be a really hard one. But just getting him on campus is a win. It feels like AJ Blazek has done an excellent job recruiting this cycle, getting people on campus, closing the deal. If he can get Hardy Watts, all good. That feels really like one of the spots that the Badgers probably upgraded the most in the offseason. It's no disrespect to anybody, Bicknell or anything like that. It feels like that's been a really home run of a hire. And I want to talk for a second about offensive line recruiting, right? So we talked about the guys this year that you've already landed: Reski, Davenport, Powell, Cam Clark. Then you look at last year's class: Emerson Mendel. You have Ryan Corey, Kevin Haywood, Colin Cubberly, Derek Jensen, right? This is stacking. This is what we talk about. We talk about this a lot. You have to stack talent in back-to-back classes. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. You can hit it out of the park one year at a position, but if you don't continue to stack talent, it really doesn't matter. That's why this year's cornerback recruiting is so important, even off the heels of last year's, because you can't just have one. So last year you had a great offensive line class, and now this year we're building another really good offensive line class. I don't think our 25 is going to quite match up with our 24, but it's going to be really damn good, especially if you can land a Hardy Watts. Like, they're going to be comparable. And what happens when we start stacking back to back really good offensive line classes? We're going to get back to where we were. We're going to get back to the Wisconsin offensive line that could punish people, that could dominate the line of scrimmage, right? Which then opens up the quarterback play, which opens up the offense for Phil Longo. You got to keep doing it. You're going to have to do it again next year, right? You can't take a year off. But we're seeing the seeds of this recruiting staff. We're seeing the seeds of this regime, this coaching regime, being planted right now with these offensive linemen. And in a couple of years, you could look at, Haywood on one side, maybe Reski on the other, or maybe Coverly or Jensen on the interior. Maybe it's a Logan Powell flanked by a Mandel and a Corey, with maybe Cam Clark backing up somewhere, and Davenport. Like, you're seeing the building blocks of this come together, and they're all Plan A guys. And they feel the film matches what it feels like. Like, some of the previous highly recruited kids Wisconsin's got on the offensive line, I'm not sure if the film matched up with the ranking at times. This feels a little different. So I think offensive line recruiting has been tremendous. It's a tip of the cap, not just to the Blazek, because this is just his first year. Last year's class was Big Nell, but 2 years in a row, Wisconsin is putting together a tremendous offensive line class. That's definitely worth talking about. Okay, let's talk about guys coming to campus this weekend. Official visit weekend number 2. 4 committed guys. I just want to start there just to kind of talk about them, get them out of the way. Brendan Ains, who I love. We had him on the show. Hyper athletic at linebacker, great in space, elite acceleration. Brendan Ains is awesome. Like, his film, if he played in a different area, if he was going to camps, and this isn't just me talking, like, guys I've talked to who watch film, they're like, this is a 4-star guy. You put him in Texas, you put him in Florida, you put him in California. Brendan Ains would be incredible, right? He would blow up, and he would have a ton of offers and interest. He would be a 4-star linebacker. I think he should be a 4-star linebacker anyway, because I think he checks the physical boxes. He's coming to campus this weekend. He's locked in. I have no reason to worry about him. I think he's solid, but watch another year of film of him get out. And now that schools have seen him commit to Wisconsin, right? When a player commits to a place like Wisconsin, blue bloods, there's a food chain in college football, right? Blue bloods will take notice. And if he puts a senior year film together, which I think he will, that will showcase kind of what he is, you could see blue bloods come sniffing, but I think he's pretty locked in. Cam Clark, who we've talked about, will be on campus. Remington Moss, another guy who's been on the show. I love that dude's game. He's 6'2", 190. He's playing corner. I think he's more of a safety. There's a chance with his physicality and athleticism, he could be a corner. I think he's probably a hybrid guy. He's coming on campus this weekend. He's a stud. Grant Dean, the athletic safety, a really good runner, of good speed. He's coming on campus. It's always good to get committed players on campus, right? If you have committed guys on campus, it makes it easier to sell. It makes it easier for other players who are coming on their official visits to pop, right? To pull the trigger, because they can see it. They can see other players, highly recruited players, highly ranked players that have bought into the system, that have bought into the culture. It makes it a lot easier for them to do it as well. They feel like they're joining a group rather than having to strike out on their own. So having those committed guys there is a big deal. It definitely makes a difference. All right, let's talk about some of the players coming on campus. A couple of them I already hit on, but Hardy Watts, we didn't talk about him last show. 6'6", 290-pound offensive lineman out of Brookline, Massachusetts. Physical with like a capital P. Like, he's like a water buffalo out there with a helmet on. He is awesome. His film is so much fun to watch. If you're a fan of offensive linemen taking the souls out of defensive players and eviscerating them, go watch some Hardy Watts. I think he's going to be a guard. Rajiv and I were actually talking about this the other day. Rajiv, we were kind of talking about, could he be a tackle? I think he could play tackle, but I think his better position probably is guard after going back watching the film again. He's just a mauler, right? Physical, elite leg drive, flies off the ball, plays with pretty good leverage. Again, we talk about leverage on a lot of high school offensive linemen. He's pretty good at that aspect, I thought. Excellent leg drive, will continue until the whistle snaps, and literally up until the whistle. Drives players out of the play. Really, really quick off the line of scrimmage, will explode off the line of scrimmage, understands angles, right, to create those running lanes similar to some of the other guys we've talked about. There's a lot there. Finishes blocks, like I talked about that. There's 5 or 6 clips in his highlight film where he's driving defenders out of the frame. He's pushing him 10, 15 yards down the line of scrimmage. He doesn't stop. Like, that's the type of mentality you want for an offensive lineman, right? You they just need to be a bully on the football field. Now, you don't want jerks off the field. We talked about that. But on the field, your offensive lineman has to be dominant. They have to play bully ball. They have to push people around. They have to want it. He plays like that, right? Excellent motor, really physical. I mean, this is a guy who, honestly, I talked about this with Emerson Mandel as well. This is a guy who could be a defensive lineman. He plays with that level of physicality. He likes contact. You can tell he wants to get after it. You line him up at strong side defensive end, I think he could succeed there too. Probably a better offensive lineman because he doesn't quite have the long arms that you want on a defensive end, but I think he could succeed at either. I think he has that type of physicality, that type of toughness. This is an elite recruit. This is an absolute elite recruit. Quickness in space, again, for a bigger guy. This is a well-built guy. We talked a little bit with Davenport. Davenport is going to have to add a little bit of weight, right? It's going to be more projectable. With Watts, he's already a big dude, right? You're not going to have to project as much. He's 6'6", 290. You already kind of have a feel that he can put on the weight and still play with explosion, with athleticism, with quickness. Those are the elite ones, right? Coming out of high school, that they have all those athletic traits. They have the physical toughness that you're looking for, and you don't need to project what they're going to look like with 20 or 30 more pounds. This is probably put the star in the sky, top of the board for this weekend. He would be a home run get. And again, if AJ Blazek pulls Hardy Watts, home run, absolute home run. All right, so I love him. Another one I want to talk about, Wilnerson Telemak. I apologize, I probably mispronounced that. Defensive end, edge player, 6'6", 260, three-star kid coming out of Opelika, Florida. What stands out about Wilnerson? Frame, right? It's much like we talked about with Davenport. There's just certain frames that are incredibly valuable in college football. This guy's 6'6", and he looks it, right? This guy's 6'6", 260 with a long wingspan. You take those guys all day if they have a little bit of movement skills. And he's got more than a little bit of movement skills, right? He's going to put his hand in the dirt, but he's got the ability to get his arms into passing lanes, deflect passes. There's definitely a little bit of rawness to his game, which means there's also potentially a lot of growth to his game. He can easily be 6'6", 290, right? He could easily put on weight. And if it develops and it clicks, because he's got some juice, this could be the prototype for like an all Big Ten type of defensive end, because there's just not a lot of guys walking around planet Earth that are 6'6", 290 that can move, right? That's why you get them. You get them for the frame, and you turn them over to Whitlow, you turn them over to Brady Collins, and you say, okay, there's not a lot of guys like this. What can you do with him? Now, he needs some work, right? He needs a little bit of work. Occasionally he kind of gets caught up in the muck. Occasionally, again, I talked about technique. He doesn't play with a lot of leverage consistently. It looks like there's coaching points that either he hasn't fully grabbed or hasn't been given to him, but you can't teach 6'6". And would you rather have the high upside guy with maybe technique work, or the lower upside guy but really good technique? Generally, I'm taking the high upside guy that just needs some technique work. I think Willerson probably fits into that range. I did like the motor. There were times running down plays on the backside. I thought there was times where he got blocked, but he showed secondary effort to get off the block, to continue making the play, occasionally splitting gaps, right? Some quickness off the line of scrimmage to get into a gap and blow up a play in the backfield. So I like him a lot. I don't think he's in the tier of a Cade Petrick. Like, I don't think he's in the tier of maybe some of the elite defensive linemen, because he has technique work and he's not elite athletically, but he's well above average, and he's 6'6", 260. So you would take this guy all day. He would add to the defensive line room, and we all know how we need some help there. All right, we're going to take a quick break, come back with a few more official visitors. Plus, somebody had a little pushback to a comment I had with Luke Fickell on the previous show. We're going to talk about that next on Locked On Badgers, but a quick break for our friends. And a quick second to say thank you. Thank you for listening on Wisconsin. Thank you for being an everydayer. Really do appreciate y'all. All right, let's get into the rest of some of the other visitors here. We've already talked about Byron Lewis and Eugene Hilton. We talked about those guys on a previous show. Both really good, right? The more I watched Eugene Hilton, and I was talking to Rajiv about this, the more I liked him. The receiver out of Indiana. He plays like a receiver, high points the ball, really good route runner, physical. I liked him the more I watched him. I think that would be a tremendous pickup for the Badgers. Byron Lewis is the running back they're going all in on this cycle. He's really good. To me, he's in that tier of the group last year, of the Jones and Dupree tier. I think he is in that tier. I know some people might disagree. I think he's very much in that tier. Very north and south explosive, subtle, understands how to run between the line of scrimmage, between the tackles, great vision, and then he explodes out of the hole with balance. I love his film. Okay, three more guys here to talk about, or two more, I apologize. Two more guys here to talk about. let's talk about Jameer Washington, the cornerback / safety coming out of Morgan Park, Chicago, Illinois, 3-star guy. Jameer Washington is interesting. Okay, Jameer Washington, 6'2", 170. Again, tell me what type of cornerback this staff likes. You better start by telling me he's 6'1" or 6'2", or at least 6 foot. This is the prototype that they go for. I love this dude's film. Throw on his film, and I don't think he's a burner. I think Stroud, Gentry both have a little more speed than he does, but Washington is physical. That's his calling card. He is physical. He run fits, blowing up blocks. Getting through blockers to blow up screen passes, tackling. He's a really physical cornerback that looks all of 6'2". I think he could probably play corner. Maybe he's a safety. Again, I don't know if he can run quite well enough to leave him on an island, but he has a physicality a lot of cornerbacks don't have. I love his game. Jameer Washington would be a huge pickup. And I'll go as far to say, I don't care if you get, we already got Raheem Stroud, obviously. I don't care if you then flip Gentry. I would still take Jameer Washington. I think he's good enough that you take him no matter what. I think there's upside there. I love the size, good ball skills as well. 6'2", 190. I think he has excellent run instincts. He comes up and hits with physicality. You need that in the Big Ten. So Jameer Washington is a guy I'm really interested in. I'm very excited for him. Nicholas Clayton, 6'4", 205-pounder, edge player coming out of Gainesville, Florida, 3-star guy. Yeah, he runs a 4.6, 4.66 on his profile, and it looks like that on film. I love his quickness. I love his quickness, his change of direction off the edge. I like his ability to get skinny, get through gaps. He has a little nuance to his game. If you remember, a guy like Nick Herbig could just feel his way through gaps in a sense. I think he's got a little bit of that. He's not Herbig, but I think he has the ability to knife through gaps. He gets small and then explodes into the backfield. This is a disruptor, right? This is the guy who maybe he's not your strong side edge that's going to consistently set the edge against a tight end and a tackle and force to run back on the inside. This is a guy who's going to come off the edge, chase down a quarterback backside and blow him up. The multiple plays, right? Chasing down plays down the line of scrimmage, down the field, great motor, really good speed. I think the film verifies the speed. He looked fast, and then the verified speed is like 4.6 something. So those things checked out to me. Plays special teams, which I always love. I always love guys who have that dog in them. And he converts speed to power, right? You're talking about edge guys, multiple clips of him getting that quick jump. The offensive tackle's trying to mirror, and then he just converts that speed to power, shucks him, gets past him, makes the play. This is a unique guy. I think this is a very high upside play. I would love Clayton. I would love him. I think he brings speed and juice to this team, and there's spots where we need a little bit more of that. So I think he would be a tremendous pickup as well. Okay. Huge official visit weekend. I want to get into this comment here too. Before I get into this comment, let's wrap that up. So huge pickup for Davenport. I think it's a great offensive line pickup. I love the class that they're building. This is a really big weekend. Byron Lewis, huge target for the Badgers. Huge target. Hardy Watts, one of the most enjoyable offensive line films you're going to see in a long time. And a couple of edge guys on the defensive line who I would think would both be really good pickups as well. Eugene Hilton and Byron Lewis, two top of the board targets at receiver and running back. If they can come out of this weekend, Byron Lewis is going to be hard to get. The Florida State's after him, Miami's after him. He would be a home run. I don't think they're probably going to get it done. I know he's open to it, but they're probably not going to quite get that done. But if they can come out of this weekend with Hilton, Watts, and maybe one of the defensive linemen, whether it's Clayton or it's Willerson, if you can get one of those two, Watts and Hilton, home run. That would be a home run cycle. And then Byron Lewis would just be cherry on the top stuff. And I like Jameer Washington as well. I would take him as well. So I can't wait to see what happens. This was a comment I did from a show we did the other day where Rajiv and I were talking about people, coaches, players under the most pressure, right? And I said, I think Luke Fickell is one of those guys. Steve said, considering how you won't put guard on the hot seat, how can you even breathe a word about football coaches after one season? And they had to completely turn the roster over. So I want to be super clear. I don't think Fickell is nowhere near a hot seat. I don't think that the hot seat for Fickell hasn't even been built yet. The question was who's under pressure. And if you're telling me Luke Fickell, who came in with all of this deserved hype, by the way, it's deserved hype. But if you're telling me he's not under a little bit of pressure after a 7-win season going into year 2, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I think he's obviously under pressure. And he should be. Like, if you're the head coach at the University of Wisconsin football, like, you should be under pressure. So, especially coming in with those expectations and coming off a 7-win season and going into a year against a really hard schedule, I think he's obviously under pressure. but that's definitely not the same thing as me thinking there's a hot seat somewhere. So I just want to clarify, but yeah, like I don't know how you would argue that a guy like that would never not be under pressure. Anyway, really do appreciate y'all on Wisconsin. I cannot wait for this official visit weekend. Huge pickup today with Davenport. Let's go on Wisconsin.